What's going on, sports fans? JD here at JD Sports Talk. Today we're going to talk Giants football. I have a very special guest. This guy has over 13 million views on his channel. Wow. He is closing in on 40,000 subscribers here, which he should get pretty quickly. And I have special honor, the Entertainah Talkin Sports, aka Tainah. Tainah, how are you today? And thank you for taking your time to share this moment and this talk with me here to talk Giants.
No, man. Listen, man. I think you got a fantastic channel. You're a great subscriber of mine. You're always in my channel supporting me, and you've been with me for a long time. And I'm excited to talk Giants football with you. I'm excited, hopefully, to talk some Knicks basketball with you too when I have some time as the season gets underway. But man, I'm always open to talking Giants, especially with a guy like you. I think you got a really good channel that's up and coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And you've been an inspiration to all of us, and you are the king of Giants YouTube. Bobby said it. Many people around have so much respect for your dedication and your work ethic for Giants, and we're all excited to see you and Bad Dog do streams here in the coming weeks. So let's get right to it. This is a huge season for the New York Giants. And you guys see it in the thumbnail with Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones. We understand that Daniel Jones, this is a make or break season for him. And I want to get your thoughts on, what is your confidence level going into this season on Daniel Jones being able to have a solid season? And what type of season do you think he needs to have in order to be considered the franchise quarterback of this organization?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough because I'm going to be honest with you, JD, and then I'm going to answer more of the question. But for me to be completely convinced he is the franchise guy by the end of the year, I don't think he's going to be able to accomplish that this year. And that's not a knock on Daniel Jones. I'm very strict. I am very strict when it comes to giving if I was a GM, to giving a quarterback a second contract, another 4 or 5 year commitment with the amount of money they make. And it has nothing. I'm always open for guys to make as much money as they possibly can, but the amount that it eats up into the salary cap, you have to be a top tier quarterback to be able to command that kind of money. So unless he has a Josh Allen-like year this year, I personally as a fan will not be completely convinced that Daniel Jones is going to be the franchise guy and be worthy of another contract. That being said, I think he could take a big step this year and have something to grow off of going into year 4. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, a Baker Mayfield-like year, where I think Browns fans aren't completely convinced with Baker, but they saw him get much better as a quarterback. They saw their team make the playoffs, and they say going into year 4, if he could take another step, then maybe he's worth that second contract. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for from Daniel Jones this year. In terms of how confident I am, just from Jones, it's tough for me to answer that because I don't know how the offensive line is going to play. I think it's a major question mark this year. And you and me were both in complete agreement with that we both wanted Slater. We both wanted the hog. And I'm always a hog guy because I've been watching this Giants team for 10, 11 years, and that's always our Achilles heel. You even go back to Eli over the second half of his career, and it was a complete disaster. We never could consistently block for the guy, and I feel bad for Jones. I think he was put in a very tough situation. And the Giants, I think they're just banking on their young players improving. And as fans, even though we may disagree with it, we preferred Slater. We preferred potentially maybe keeping Zeitler over signing a guy like Logan Ryan, even though I love Logan Ryan. I'm super glad that he's back. But you could at least argue maybe that money could have been better spent on a guy like Zeitler when you had such a bad offensive line. He was your most, grown lineman and at least a guy that you could somewhat depend on. It's a major question mark. And I think Daniel Jones's progress, a lot of it is going to come down to Shane Lemieux, Matt Parrott, and Andrew Thomas taking a big step forward in year 2. Now, from an and I'm sorry if I'm rambling. From an optimistic standpoint, in my opinion, one, continuity, growing together. Rookie players should take a big step forward. But the other thing, the weapons, getting Barkley back, getting the receivers should help assist the offensive line. But the question is, will the offensive line be good enough for Jones to take that big step forward? And I'm not gonna be able to really answer that until at least week 3 or 4, because I look at the first 2 weeks, JD. We're going up against probably the best secondary in the NFL, and we're going up against the Washington football team, who's probably the best pass rush in the NFL. And you're gonna have a limited Saquon Barkley more than likely. So I am not going to really start to – now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to criticize Jones if he does bad things the first 2 weeks, but I am not going to go with the expectations of Jones being more than a game manager going against those defenses not being fully equipped going into those games. I think by week 3 on is where I'll really start to be able to judge Daniel Jones. But what I will say about Jones this year, if the offensive line is close to average, if they're, say, top 20, I do think Jones could have a very good year for the Giants.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the Denver Broncos, Pro Football Focus has them as the best secondary going into this season to start the season. So it's going to be a tough test to start the season. And as you mentioned, it's going to be just a strange way to evaluate him because he has weapons, but as you mentioned, he may not have all the weapons fully healthy and ready to go week 1 with Saquon Barkley being limited to start the season. As you mentioned, we were both wanted, the offensive lineman Slater coming out of college. And I felt that would have been a very valuable addition, especially because I believe that our weakest part of the unit to me is the interior, the guard positions. I actually do have confidence that Andrew Thomas is going to take a step up. Matt Part, worst case scenario, you do have a veteran in Nate Solder to back up and be that swing tackle. So we have some depth there. I just think the interior of the offensive line, it's, who knows? They're changing the position with Will Hernandez, and I think it looks like he's had an up and down camp, nothing too crazy. It's gonna come down to the offensive lineman. Daniel Jones, his first 2 seasons, has been sacked 83 times.
It's crazy.
To put into perspective, David Carr, Tainah, his first 2 seasons was sacked 91 times.
And keep in mind that Jones has missed 6 games.
Yeah. Exactly. And Sam Darnold, who got 3 years, was in the 60 range. So it goes to show you, what Daniel Jones has had to deal with. And I know fans don't want to hear it, and people don't want, you want to see the quarterback perform. But at the end of the day, I just don't know that he is still in the best position from a protection standpoint to show us what he's made of. But that's why he's out of excuses, in my opinion. He's still going to have to figure it out because at the end of the day, Tainah, you know what people are going to say, right? We went out and spent money on Galladay. You have Slayton, so you have speed. They signed John Ross. He's not expected to be in the rotation, but you have speed there. Kadarius Toney, first round draft pick. Sterling Shepard in a contract year. He's going to be motivated. And then you have Saquon Barkley coming back. It's a lot of weapons, so
yeah,
he's going to have
and Rudolph.
Yeah, and then you have Kyle Rudolph and Evan Ingram, who, let's see if he has, solid hands this season. But he has a lot of weapons, and I think he's out of excuses. Even if the O-line is not there to protect him, if he doesn't figure out a way, whether it is, running the football or figuring it out with Jason Garrett, I think, with the Chicago Bears draft pick, let's see what that translates to. But I think he is out of excuses, and let's see what happens. Going on, speaking of, offense, Jason Garrett is the next guy I wanted to ask you about. I think he has a lot of pressure. I think he may have the most pressure in the sense that, around the NFL, when an offense or a defense is not performing and you're going into a season where a team is facing a lot of pressure, usually the first firings is either the position coach or the coordinator. So in that perspective, I think Garrett could be the first guy to go if the Giants get off to a slow start here. Even as they're facing some tough defenses, a lot of people believe that their first few games are actually very winnable games. The Giants get off to a slow start. If their red zone offense doesn't pick up, I think Jason Garrett has a lot of pressure. What is your confidence level in Jason Garrett being able to adapt? He does have weapons now. In Dallas, he had those big receivers where Owens, and now he has Galladay, and he has some weapons. It's put up or shut up time for Garrett, but what is your confidence level that Garrett will be able to have some creativity this year and execute for the Giants?
Yeah, first thing I'm going to say about Garrett, I can't say this 100%, but I am pretty sure this is going to be Garrett's last year with the Giants this year. Whether the Giants do really good or really bad. Garrett clearly showed this offseason that he was open to a potential head coaching position. Well, if Jones does break out this year, I do think Garrett's going to try to find himself a head coaching job in the NFL or potentially at the college ranks. Obviously, last year wasn't the ideal year to do it, being that the Giants had no weapons. The offense was stagnant. So either way, I think he's gone, if I had to guess. If the Giants exceed expectations offensively, I think he goes somewhere else. And if they suck, I think he gets fired, and he's looking maybe for another coordinator job with another team or at the collegiate ranks. But in terms of how confident I am with Jason Garrett going into this year, listen, I know everybody hates Jason. Well, not everybody, but a lot of Giants fans blame everything on Jason Garrett. And he wasn't the most innovative guy. I'll be the first to say it. He wouldn't be my first ideal choice for an offensive coordinator, but the guy has a track record. The guy has a proven track record as a coordinator in the NFL of getting the job done when he has the necessary pieces. When he was with Dallas, they consistently had a top 5, 6, 7 offense while he was calling plays. Now, granted, that's 10, 15 years ago. I recognize the sport has changed. But at the same time, everybody makes up these excuses for Daniel Jones last year. Well, if Jones had nothing to work with, then Garrett had nothing to work with. Not to mention, he had a quarterback that had never played in his scheme before. So you could actually make an argument that Garrett was at more of a disadvantage than Jones was.
Yeah.
So I look at Garrett this year, and it's the same thing I feel about Jones. Like you said, I feel he's got the weapons. I feel like he's got the pieces in place. I think Golladay, if he's healthy, got to worry about the hamstring there. But I think Golladay fits this scheme to a T. And I think Saquon Barkley is who we envisioned running this offense through last year. When he went down, it just completely changed everything. Well, now we're obviously hoping, knock on wood, that Barkley's going to be 100% at full strength. Again, the offensive line is going to have a lot to do with both of these people, Jones and Garrett's success. But do I think the offense will be more successful this year? Yes. There's no excuses for it not to be. You add Tony, so on and so forth. The question is, will it be good enough? And I also will agree with you. I don't know about the hot seat, whatever it may be, but I could definitely see Garrett either being relieved of play calling duty mid-season if the offense isn't working right, or even potentially being fired. We've seen that Judge, if coaches aren't doing things the way that he wants, he's not scared to pull the plug. He did it last year with Colombo. If this offense is struggling mightily, don't be shocked if he makes changes. He's got guys on this coaching staff that he has ties to, whether it be Freddie Kitchens, whether it be Jerry Shulplinski. There are guys on this coaching staff that he has ties to that he probably, if we're being honest with ourselves, has more confidence in. I do not think that Jason Garrett was a Joe Judge hire. So I agree with you on that. I could see, say we're 8 weeks in and the offense is, maybe we're semi-competitive because of our defense, but the offense is holding us back and Judge feels a change needs to be made. I would not be shocked at all if that were to happen.
And I agree with you. And I think the prevailing thought here is, Tainah, this offensive line is gonna have they're gonna decide the jobs of many people here with the Giants.
Get them in two.
Yeah, they're gonna decide the jobs of many people because they're gonna be some Jason Garrett fans that are going to say, well, yeah, he had a top 5 offense in Dallas, but he also had a very good offensive line, and the Giants don't have that. So, it's kind of the same question. Does he actually have the special ingredient that he needs to be able to execute the offense the way that he does it? Because if he's out there, calling game plans that are actually managing the game and is dink and dunk because of Daniel Jones, then you can't really say that he's actually executing the playbook that he wants. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to come down to the offensive line. And, who do you think is going to be the biggest beneficiary this year out of all the weapons? Who do you have having the best season with Jason Garrett here, this upcoming season?
I mean, if Barkley's completely healthy, he's our big, not even close. I think he's our best player on the football team if he's completely healthy. So my quick answer would be him. I think Golladay fits the scheme very well, but I'm gonna tell you, man, I keep saying it, I might look like a fool. I think Ingram could have a good year for the Giants because there's no pressure on him in terms of getting the top tier coverage. He's gonna be the 3rd or 4th option in the passing game. If he could hold on to the damn ball in a contract year, I could see Ingram having a strong year for the Giants. But of course, I thought that last year and he sucked. So I'm not gonna get my hopes over the top, sky high on him. But I just think all the secondary guys, whether it be Ingram, whether it be Shepard, whether it be Slayton, should only benefit from adding a guy like Golladay and from getting a guy like Saquon Barkley back. Tony as well adds a different element to the offense. So those guys should have better opportunities. They may not get the same target shares. Matter of fact, they will not get the same target shares that they got last year. But I feel like they could be a lot more efficient due to the fact that they're not the focal point of the opposing defense this year.
Man, you have the names, Kenny Galladay, you have everyone else, and you have Saquon Barkley. But I think, as you know, with these, Travis Kelce you see in Kansas City, and, the tight end position that, Tom Brady with Rob Gronkowski, that position is so critical for a young quarterback. And Evan Ingram is going to have a big season. Even if everyone else is doing well, I think he, again, will be a major part of the success or failure of the New York Giants this season. Let's go into Joe Judge. Listen, I want Joe Judge to do well, man. I see these videos. I saw him in Fan Fest. And I know it sounds very wishy-washy, and it sounds like, I'm being a big fan and all that. And I know he's a millionaire. He'll be fine. I know all that stuff. But he is just so New York to me. And he's a guy that, everything that he preaches is what New York is all about. And so I want him to do well. I'm so rooting for him. What is your confidence level in Joe Judge in year 2 taking a step up? And there's been a lot of controversy in mainstream media about the way that, he is conducting practices and the way that, consequences for errors and all that stuff. What's your confidence level that Joe Judge is going to have a productive second year? And, do you think he's in any type of hot seat?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the media stuff in terms of the way he handles his practices, I could care less about that. That doesn't bother me. The Giants hired this guy knowing full well what he was going to do. He even talked about it in his opening press conference, how they were going to have much more strenuous practices than the average NFL team. So that doesn't bother me. It's what I expected when he took the job. And I think he's the type of coach that the New York Giants needed. I think a guy like Pat Shurmur, and I don't know if it'll work long-term. I'll be the first to say it. I know you're a big Nick guy like me. I love Thibodeau year 1. That may not work in 5 years. I don't know. But this point, when we hired Judge, he was the type of coach we needed. We needed a culture shock. We needed a guy that was going to shake things up. I think we just needed that type of coach. We needed a demanding head coach, something that we hadn't had in a long time. Even Coughlin, towards the last 3 or 4 years of his career, wasn't the most demanding head coach. And I think we needed a culture shock. There was a clear problem in the locker room. I think Judge exceeded expectations last year. And I know maybe some Giants fans watching this may call me crazy for saying that. We only won 6 games. Well, what did you expect to win? I mean, you look at that roster last year, Barkley goes down game 2. You got Daniel Jones in a completely new scheme, didn't have a preseason to operate, everything else. You had 3 new offensive linemen. Gates had never played the center spot before.
We have a 5th round pick as our number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, exactly. So what did you expect to win? So, and it wasn't even just the record for me. And granted, like the pessimistic fans will tell you, well, they beat the Bengals without Joe Burrow. They beat the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. But then I could just as easily say, well, they were this close to beating Tom Brady and the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went wire to wire with them. They nearly beat the Rams. You're talking about some of the best teams in the NFL. Yeah, granted, the Ravens spanked us, but Daniel Jones was half a quarterback at that point coming off the injury. The same thing with the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, the Seattle Seahawks was the highlight of the season, and the big game win at the end of the year, which was essentially a playoff game when we beat the Dallas Cowboys, which I think was good experience for Daniel Jones. But listen, man, I'm confident in Judge. Do I know he's going to be long-term answer? I don't. I'd be lying to you if I said that. I got to see more. He's only been here for a year, and I'm not the type of guy that wants to set up, and most Giant fans are doing this now. You'll notice it, whether it's on Twitter, so on and so forth. They're hyping him up to be the next Bill Belichick. And I'm not going to do that. I'm a proof in the pudding guy. It's the same thing I did with Daniel Jones. I was never a Danny Dimes guy. I need to see it. I'm going to believe in you. I'm going to, I see the potential with Joe Judge for sure. And I do think he's got this team going down the right path. But we got to see results. In terms of him being on the hot seat, the only way I could see Joe Judge, and I don't think he's going to lose his job almost under any circumstances at the end of this year, but the only way I could see it even being a remote possibility is if the Giants completely tanked this year. Like if they went like 3-14 and they said, all right, we need to start completely over. We're going to get rid of the G. That's the only way. I don't see that happening. I think at a bare minimum, this team wins 6 or 7 games, and that's if they have, bad injuries. I think they're a 9-win football team. I really do. That's what my expectations are going into the year. But if they won like 3 games, I can't say he's completely safe. I mean, the last 2 coaches have only lasted 2 years here with the New York Giants. And if I would have told you after Ben McAdoo's first year, when we went to the playoffs and started 11-5, that he wasn't going to last more than another year, you would have called me crazy. So you can't predict the future. You know what I'm saying? In a way, though, I think it was a good thing that Judge didn't set expectations too high after year one. I think he slightly exceeded expectations. McAdoo, even though I think he had very little to do with the success of that team. I think that mainly had to do with the fact that you had a veteran quarterback and you spent all that money in free agency, and that helped him as a head coach. He was almost a victim of his own success because they went 11-5, and then expectations the following year were sky high. And then obviously the team completely failed miserably. You could say the same thing about a guy like Eric Mangini, for example, with the Jets. He came in at a great first year. People were calling him Eric Mangenius. And then the expectations were way too high. And then I feel like he was out of town maybe quicker than he potentially should have been. I think Judge set it up so he could have a little bit more success this year and continue to build off of what he did in his first year. I think he's in a really good spot. I believe in Judge. But like I said, let me see an 8 or 9 win season. Let's continue to grow. Let's continue to build. And I hope he's the long-term answer for the football team.
And even in your example of, 3 or 4 wins, I don't even know if he gets fired.
I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
Because I think if first of all, if they go 3 or 4 wins, then Daniel Jones had an awful season.
He's
probably
gone.
Right.
Gettleman's gone. Jones is. That's the only reason why I could see it being even like a remote possibility. Even though I don't think it'll happen. I think the Giants have handed him the keys. I think they believe in him.
And the quarterback is really his guy. Joe Judge came into with Daniel Jones already being the guy.
I'm gonna tell you what though. I'm not gonna say he's married to Daniel Jones. But Joe Judge took this job knowing he's a smart guy. He's not stupid.
Right.
He took this job knowing full well. It's not like Daniel Jones was coming off an atrocious rookie season. He was the 6th overall pick. He took this job knowing full well that Daniel Jones was going to be his quarterback for at least 2 or 3 years when he first took this job. So he's not as married to him as Gettleman is, but I think there's a connection there. And let's put it this way: it's in Judge's best interest if Jones has a good year this year.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think he's on the hot seat, and I think he'll do well. And the whole chain is linked between Gettleman, Judge, and Danny Jones and Garrett. I think they're all in one way, shape, or form or fashion. They're linked to the success of what will happen this year. And we're gonna end it with you mentioned. In your response there, I saw that you said that you think we're a 9-win team. I wonder how fans felt as they watched this when you said 9 wins. If that would be considered meeting expectations, underperforming. And that's interesting that you say 9 wins. If the Giants do in fact get 9 wins, and let's say they just missed the playoffs, it's a 17-game season this year. Do you see a scenario where 9 wins is enough to keep Daniel Jones as the quarterback and to keep Gettleman, the whole squad? Do you see any firings? Do you see any changes under a 9-win season? And do you think fans will be even happy with a 9-win season? What do you think is, because I think, I have us as 11 wins. I got, my prediction is 11-6. 9 wins. What do you think that would result in a 9-win season here for the Giants?
Yeah, I'm trying to go in conservative. I have us between 8 and 10, and 9's right in the middle. I think 10 is very reasonable. 11's possible. 11's possible too, but Jones has to take that lead, and the offensive line has to be like at least close to middle of the pack. If they do that, I'm completely with you. I think we could be an 11, even a 12-win team if Jones takes a big leap this year. I've got us at 9, and I think it's circumstantial. Like I think like it's hard for me to give a full answer as to what, because how did they get the 9 wins? Did Jones play horrible? So here's what I'll say. If the Giants win 9 games, they're competitive in the majority of their contests this year, outside of like the Chiefs and the Rams and the top teams they're playing. But outside of that, they go wire to wire with the Dolphins. They show that they could beat some good football teams. Jones shows that he's growing as a quarterback. He's good in situational football, the 2-minute drill, so on and so forth, things like that. You see growth with him at the position. I think you run it back. And I'm not saying that Garrett, I think there's a chance he's gone no matter what, but I think Judge is forward thinking enough to know Garrett's replacement's on the staff already. I think there's a guy on this staff that's going to be the next New York Giants offense coordinator, which would kind of not, I guess, hinder Jones as much, because you have a guy he's at least familiar with, and you're not bringing in a new OC that's going to change everything. I think the Giants have Garrett's successor on this staff, and I do think this will be Garrett's last year with the Giants. That's just my prediction. But if they win 9 games, I'd be leaning yes, as much as Giants fans may not want to hear that. You're talking about a 3-game jump, and you're talking about a 3-game jump in a season where I could only assume you have to play Dak twice instead of playing him 0 times last year, where you have to play, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's a step up for the Washington football team at quarterback, right, twice this year. So, yeah, I think 9 wins should be enough, depending on the circumstances. For both Gettleman and that's minimum for me, but I think that would just be enough. It's kind of like the 6 wins last year,
right,
where I felt like the 6 wins was just enough for Gettleman to be able to come back. I think it's the same thing this year. I think 9 wins is the mark. I think if they win 9 games and Jones shows progress, I think you give Gettleman another year, and I think that's in the best interest of the football team, because you don't want to bring in another guy that has no connection to Jones, so on and so forth, that's going to shake things up and completely tear apart what Gettleman has essentially built up to this point in time, just like Gettleman did when, we fired Jerry Reese.
Yeah, and I agree. And now, who knows, Tainah, 9 wins with this division, could be enough. So that
I think we'll get in with 9 wins. Yeah, it might not be the division; it could be the wild card. But with the extra team making the playoffs, I think 9 wins will get us in.
Yeah, and I do agree, because I think we're talking about the Giants here, but when you look at the NFC East, all these teams in the NFC East have major questions. The Redskins with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's been around. Can he be the guy that can get it done? I don't think so.
He's never been to the playoffs.
Yeah, some people think he can. I don't think he can. The Cowboys, they have some injury concerns. The secondary is very weak. Can they play enough good defense? They have a lot of offensive talent, but we all see the Cowboys are very much an up and down 500 team almost year in and year out. And the Eagles is quite simply, I think they have too many holes on their defense and offense all around. And I just don't think Jalen Hurts is their franchise quarterback. So the Giants could, walk into a pretty solid situation as long as they get to that 9-10 win threshold. So let's see what happens. Tainah, this was awesome. I'm sitting here and I still can't believe that, you took some time to do this video with me. As I mentioned to you before, man, plenty of us in the Giant space, even in the Knicks space, we look up to, guys like you that are just giants in this space, no pun intended. So thank you for having the time. Guys, please subscribe to the Entertainah Talking Sports. I'll have his channel in the description. And any last words, Tainah?
I mean, guys, if you're watching, please subscribe to JD Sports. I think he's a great guy. Like I said, you've been with my channel since damn near the beginning. So anytime you want me to come on, if I can fit it in my schedule, I'll always try to make it. And I really appreciate the kind words, man. I really think you're growing something really good here. I think people are going to enjoy this channel. So make sure you hang out. He's going to do kind of what I do, only he's going to talk a little bit more in depth with the Knicks. So definitely check out his channel. I appreciate you for having me on, and I hope you're right and I'm wrong. I hope we win 11 games this year. That'd be nice, man. It'd be nice, man. It would give me a lot of hope going in. But I'll tell you what, man. Since I've been on YouTube, I have not gone into a year with expectations. I'd be lying. 2018, I had some expectations, but when we kept Eli, we got Barkley.
Yep.
I thought they could have done something, and I still think that team wasn't that bad. They just got off to a really slow start, and then they kind of got things going in the second half. But the last 2 years specifically, it was all about growth. It was all about rebuilding. It was not setting the bar too high. It's nice to finally go into a year saying to yourself, I might be let down this year, because that means that there's expectations. And it's nice. It's nice to actually go into a year thinking that we have a legitimate shot to make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, and I mean, hey, I think your mindset is the correct one, but I'm just excited about the additions and
you should be.
Why not?
We made some exciting. We didn't even talk about the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
I mean, we could save that for another podcast. But that's what I'm more excited than anything else. Our defense is going to be really good.
Right, and we will get into that, and I think that's the major reason, to be honest, why I think they'll push just enough. I think the defense will win them a few games, even in a few games that Danny Jones is not right, has a turnover or two. I think the defense will be that good. Pro Football Focus has their secondary in the top 10. I believe it was 7th that they ranked. Not many people really believe in PFF, so just putting that out there. Some people like it, some people don't. But without their rankings, I think many NFL talent evaluators see this Giants defense as a top 5, top 8 defense.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Season.
7 to 8 in that range. I think that's where I'd have it.
So if you're going to be that, then we're just asking the offense just to be adequate.
Average.
Just be average. And average. I think the Giants will help you get. They won 6 games last year without some of the weapons, and you have some of these guys coming back. So, guys, thank you. Tainah, thank you. And please subscribe to the Entertainah Talkin Sports. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And if you do, make sure you hit the notification bell so that you are notified every time that I drop a video. And I'll see you around in the next video.